My name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say in one sentence or less what? You know what I mean. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis? Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, the New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
Well, Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom and freedom.
Welcome everybody in Instagram. Big Instagram audience for Instagram anyway. You want to get back to Lawrence. This is actually going to be pretty long. So if you need to get back to Lawrence, go back to Lawrence.
The airport without answering the question.
We're just watching a monologue as we get everything started. So, oh, great. You guys can hear it. That's awesome. I didn't think you could hear it.
Well, our Constitution
I'm going to get started in just a minute.
Madison was a genius.
Just give me a minute.
The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing. You don't look satisfied.
My favorite opening monologue.
And the other is a declaration of war. I want a human moment from you.
Very cool to see everybody here on Instagram.
What about the people?
And everybody joining on
Greatest
TikTok
country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
and on YouTube. As I'm just getting started. This video, I think this live is going to blow everybody's minds. Sorry to be interrupting the monologue.
Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of her paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime, column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey, and with a straight face, you're going to tell
with you guys
students
soon.
that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So
What's up, Matt?
107 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom. All right. And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander
Canadian
into a
dad.
booth one day, there's some things you should know. One of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy.
Stick around, those of you on
We were able to
Instagram.
do all these things and do
Hang
all
on.
these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for sticking around on Instagram. These monologues, I have to balance everything that's going on between YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. There's different copyright issues, so I appreciate it. It is one of the greatest monologues. That's why I play it so often, because it's inspiring and makes people realize that we have so many problems now more than ever. And that opening monologue from the newsroom was back in 2014, I believe. And it is more true than ever today. The stats might be a little bit long. I know everybody loves that scene, which is awesome. But today's show is really about some important things. So if you know my channel, this account, I'm always about promoting the elimination of corruption in the political system. And we have to do that through a 28th Amendment. So those of you here, please stick around for a minute, because we're going to get into the geopolitics about Trump wanting Greenland, because everybody is distracted about Greenland and about what Trump says. But no one is focusing on what the root cause is and who really is behind this desire for us to take Greenland. And Trump is just the distraction. And he's the distraction. And even world leaders, the media, politicians, most of our politicians, they don't all know either. This is something that, you hear Macron from France, the president of France, talking about why does Trump want Greenland so bad? It's not Trump. Trump's entire inner circle, the entire inner circle is Heritage Foundation operatives, agents. I have the list right here. I have so many notes to go through today. I think you guys are going to love this show. But there's the notes right there on all the operatives that are inside Trump's orbit. And the vast majority of them are Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 agents. So what you really have to do is stop focusing on what Trump says he wants, because he's just being influenced or told what he should want, because he's so easy to manipulate. And that's why we're going to go over this map. So if you're on Instagram, read the comment that I keep posting occasionally, because Instagram users, you're going to have a hard time following along with this because you don't have the map view. So if you read the comment and you go somewhere else, you can see this in real time. So those of you that are on TikTok, and we have an awesome audience that's growing on TikTok, thanks for standing by me as I get this started. But I want people to understand that virtually everything that Trump has been doing, from Maduro being removed in Venezuela, to threatening Cuba, to threatening Colombia, to threatening Mexico, in the past threatening Canada, and threatening Greenland, this is all the Heritage Foundation. All of it. It's in the 990 pages of Project 2025 and the mandate for leadership. So if you're not familiar with Project 2025, the mandate for leadership is the Project 2025 document. It's 990 pages long. And everything that's happening that Trump is doing has nothing to do about Trump wants. Trump doesn't care. Trump doesn't know any better. He's just too stupid. He doesn't really understand how deep the think tank that the Heritage Foundation is doing and what they want. And because he's surrounded himself with people like Pam Bondi, Russ Vogt, Stephen Miller, Carolyn Levitt, Peter Navarro, James Braid, Monica Crowley, Pete Hofstra, and then Brendan Carr from the FCC, Tom Holman, the border czar. All these people are Heritage Foundation plants. This is not a conspiracy. So I'm going to make it clear to the people watching and to the moderators, if there are any AI moderators, it's not a conspiracy. It's all documented. It's all documented at Heritage Foundation. These are all Heritage Foundation backers, supporters, agents, operatives, whatever you want to call it. And then you have congressional leaders as well, like Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Rick Scott, Roger Wicker, and there's many on the House of Representatives side as well. And then, of course, you have 6 Supreme Court justices that were appointed essentially by the Federalist Society, which is like the sister company to the Heritage Foundation. So as I'm going to go through this map, as you see this map, you're going to learn a lot, because I've been reading the Project 2025 for a long time, trying to connect the dots, figuring out what's the deal with Trump? When is it Trump? And when is it the Heritage Foundation? And when is it the Silicon Valley billionaires? having an influence? When is it APAC that's having influence? When is it just a crypto scam and sort of grifting scam? You know, you have to understand all these different layers, and I have charts for all these things. But when you come back to like who's the biggest player in changing the entire world order, it's the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is not just some external think tank. This is what everyone needs to understand. The Heritage Foundation is an internal organization now because they control the levers of the executive branch and some levers of Congress and also the levers of the Supreme Court. So the Heritage Foundation is not this external group anymore. It is the government. The inside of the government is operating. Now, you have other influences as well. So maybe be clear. So people know that APAC and their lobbyists and super PAC has a lot of influence in government. So do the Silicon Valley billionaires, which are also, some of them are very much aligned with the Heritage Foundation. So you have these different groups. You always have these influences. But what you don't have is where you have an organization like the Heritage Foundation and their plan, where they have installed agents throughout the entire government, through government agencies, through Congress, through the executive branch, and through the Supreme Court. So not conspiracy. These are all well-known players. I'm going to try and pay attention to some of these comments that are coming through, and then we're going to get to the globe, and I'm going to show you really what's going on and what the Heritage Foundation wants, because it is sick. It is a old school way of thinking. It's going to destroy the rules-based world order, or rules and values-based world order. You know, Stephen Miller got up on Jake Tapper last week and said, we want to govern by strength. We want to govern by the ironclad laws of power. This is not how the world has been governed since 1945, after World War II. It's been governed by rules and values, and it's been backed by strength and backed by power. What we have since 1945, we have not been using our power, or try not to use. We've overstepped our bounds many times, but we're not supposed to be an imperialistic nation. We haven't been that country in a very long time, an empire building. But that's what the Heritage Foundation wants. They want us to be more of an imperialistic nation. And I hear these trolls in here on TikTok. You're funny. Foodle time. You're wrong, dude. Get more info. Listen, man, I have all the info. And I promise you, I don't even know who you are. I've done much more research on this, and you're just a shill. And I have lots of trolls here that will talk about things. So Foodle time, the new world order is done? Maybe, or maybe we can push back. Those people who care about freedom, see, you're just a traitor. Anyone who's saying that the world order is done, or they actually like what the Heritage Foundation wants, is a traitor to the United States, is a traitor to the Constitution, because you don't believe in freedom, you don't believe in liberty, you don't believe in rules, and you don't believe in the law. And the law is the Constitution, and you certainly don't believe in the Bill of Rights. So anyone who's there as being a troll, you don't have any integrity and you don't have any morals, because you can't even believe in a foundational principle of the Constitution and the rule of law. So you can watch and get lost, or you can hang out and actually learn something if you have an open mind. Because if you have an open mind, what I'm going to tell you in this show is going to probably blow your mind away. All right, so with that said, I'm not taking any guests yet. So we have a nice audience here. Thanks everybody for watching. So we're going to zip around the globe a little bit and talk about some of these things. So let me give you a recap. The current world order is one that's based on rules, and it's based on law. And I'm not saying the United States has not always abided by the law. It has not abided by the law sometimes, but we've always promoted freedom, liberty, and democracy. That's what we stand for. That's what we're supposed to stand for. And we're supposed to stand for human rights as well. So if a society wants to be a democratic nation, we generally support that. That is the right thing to do. Support it. It doesn't mean we should go and take over nations and do empire building. We're not an imperialistic nation. We haven't been. But the Heritage Foundation wants us to be an imperialistic nation again, because they want us to be isolationist again. So I can't paste that. So those of you on IG, if you want more context, I'd advise you please go over to YouTube or Instagram. Let me see if there's a couple comments, and then we're going to get talking about the globe and what the future looks like. And here's the thing. This will be our future unless the United States citizens fight back, because the electorate, the United States population, even MAGA, did not vote for the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. Because if you remember, Trump said he knew nothing about Project 2025. So if you're someone who's MAGA and you think you voted for Project 2025, then you're probably lying to yourself. You just voted for Trump, and Trump is just a vessel for Project 2025 because Trump's easy to manipulate. He just cares about self-enrichment and grifting. He doesn't have values, and he doesn't have an ideology. He just has making a desire to grift and to make more money. So like people are saying, La Pisa, it is treason. He did lie to us, right? You could almost go that far and say it's treason because he lied to the American population that he didn't know Project 2025. But he's got Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who's been praised by the Heritage Foundation, has been associated with legal entities part of the Heritage Foundation. Russell Vogt is one of the primary architects of Project 2025. So is Stephen Miller. He's also, of course, been promoting Project 2025. Peter Navarro is part of an author of Project 2025 when it comes to using trade and tariffs. Brendan Carr is also an author of Project 2025, and he's the FCC chair. Tom Homan, the border czar, is listed as a Project 2025 contributor, and he's a central figure in the Heritage Foundation's backed immigration enforcement strategy. Caroline Levitt is also a Heritage Foundation agent. She was a contributor and instructor. John Ratcliffe. I'm just going over some of the more high levels. There are dozens or more that are Heritage Foundation operatives inside the government. So when people think that Trump is going after Greenland, which right here, I'm going to spin this around. When you think Trump is going after Greenland because he wants Greenland, it's not because he wants Greenland. So I'm going to get started. Now there's a lot of people here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching, because now I'm going to get started with the map. And again, if you're on IG, I'd suggest you go to another place, either TT or YT, to watch the show, because this is going to be important. So right now, we are supposed to, since 1945, we operated in a rules-based world order where we promote democracy and freedom and liberty, as I mentioned. And that means Europe. Our biggest allies, of course, are in Europe, and also in Japan after World War II, our allies in Japan. And we have allies all across the South China Sea with the Philippines and Vietnam and many others. We have been promoting any country or any population that is seeking freedom, including Ukraine right here. Ukraine has been clearly making a move, even though they've had a very corrupt government for a long time through the 2000s, but they've been making a move to want to become democratic. The United States, in the way that we've always operated since 1945, is we support that. Doesn't mean we go over and we take over the country or anything like that. We just support that population. That's why we should be supporting Ukraine. So all around the globe, even in Africa and South America, we don't want dictatorships. We generally want and have promoted democracy and freedom and liberties. And listen, I'm not talking about American exceptionalism here. We have overstepped our skis. We have done things that have gone against those values at times. There's no doubt about it. Africa as well. We generally promote. That's what, USAID. So thanks for the comment pointing out Africa. USAID supports and wants soft power throughout Africa until we pulled that away. So here's the current world order, where you have the United States, which essentially is the heartbeat of democracy. It is the heartbeat of freedom and liberty, even at times when we haven't acted properly or appropriately. But everyone around the world, every society that's seeking freedom and liberty, has looked and aspired to have what the United States people have had. A democratic republic where the people are the ultimate leaders of the country. But we know the United States is not acting like that anymore, and we're not functioning as a democratic republic anymore. But we have to make a decision. Do we as a population want to continue to fight for freedoms and liberties. Yes, Matt, there is a point coming. Hang on. It's going to be a 1-hour show. So if you can't stick around, I get it. So here is what it looks like today, where I just mentioned that. But this is what the Heritage Foundation wants. The Heritage Foundation is basically wanting to go to an isolationist, and you can see the lines that I drew on the map. I'm going to blink them a few times, where the Heritage Foundation in Project 2025 calls for a Western or America's hemisphere domination, that the United States should be the dominant power only in its hemisphere. It wants to ensure that South America is essentially a vessel continent of the United States. The United States wants to ensure that there's no China and Russian influence in Venezuela and in Cuba, and that's why they've done that. And I can't necessarily disagree with that part. And that's also why they want to take Greenland. So when you look at Greenland, Greenland is, of course, in terms of proximity, closest to the North American continent, and it's an important Arctic strategic area. So Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation wants the United States not just to be self-sufficient ourselves, meaning the United States industry has to be made in the United States. It wants to ensure that we control our entire hemisphere. So right now, people think China is our number one trading partner. It is not. It is Canada. It is Mexico and Canada. China, of course, still provides a lot of electronics and so forth. So does Asia with Taiwan and the chip manufacturing and so forth. Thank you very much for the caps. But it's really important to note that the Heritage Foundation want to bring everything into this hemisphere because they don't believe in promoting freedom and democracy throughout the world. And they essentially want to cut the rest of the world loose. They want to cut the rest of the world loose and just focus on protecting our hemisphere and dominating our hemisphere. So how does that work out? Well, they want to bring all trade into Mexico. Mexico will be the new China. It is already becoming and has been for many years the China, the main trading partner of the United States to produce cheap goods. They want it to be in Mexico. They also want Canada to essentially become a vassal state of the United States. And this is why Trump in the past has talked about Mexico becoming a 51st state. Of course, they want to control all of South America here as well. But Greenland is also important for two reasons. For future resources. So China has some resources, a few resources for electronics that we need. For the most part, the United States is self-sufficient in most resources in agricultural, in precious metals, and so forth. There are some that we can't get in the Northern Hemisphere, in the Western Hemisphere. So the belief here is that Greenland will unlock tremendous amount of resources in the future so that Greenland can unlock those resources, and any resources that Greenland has will essentially be under the domain of that domination of the United States controlling its hemisphere. Now, as AI advances and China becomes more powerful, having Greenland as a strategic area for the Arctic is important. And just don't get me wrong. So in order to counteract, we already have control, of course, of Alaska. So everything between Alaska and Greenland in the Arctic would be controlled by the United States. This is what the Heritage Foundation wants. This is not what I'm promoting. But the ridiculous part of this is that the United States already has as much control militarily as it needs in Greenland. So this is not about protecting the United States because we already have a military base. We used to have, here's the military base on Greenland. We used to have 12 military bases on Greenland during the Cold War, but we didn't need them anymore. But we could easily go back to Greenland with military bases and even ICBMs and other defense systems if we want to. NATO is going to, of course, let us do that to protect not only the United States and the North American continent, but also Europe as well. So the idea for the Heritage Foundation that we have to take Greenland for protection is absurd. It's idiotic. We don't. It's probably more to do about resources, unlocking future resources, and just controlling. You have to understand these people that create these think tanks and these documents. They are filled with ideology. They are freaks. They are not global geopolitical experts. They have warped views. Of course, the Heritage Foundation wants to turn the United States into a white nationalist society. That's what you're seeing with ICE. That's also part of the issue. So part of their domination is also to dominate the United States and get rid of the Constitution. So the Heritage Foundation here's the core goals for the Heritage Foundation. I have it right here. This is really interesting stuff. So if you look at the Heritage Foundation in Project 2025, here are the core goals. There are 5 of them. One of them is to centralize executive power. What does that mean? Centralize executive power in the presidency. Does that sound like democracy? Of course not. That's a king. That's an authoritarian. That's a dictator. They want the executive branch and the president to have unlimited power. That's what the mandate for leadership in Project 2025 is, their number one core goal. It's not about Congress. Congress is the people's government, and it's where we elect our congressional leaders to represent the people. The Heritage Foundation doesn't give a shit about democracy or the Constitution at all. It's right here in their core values. It's right in Project 2025. The second thing is they want to restructure. So number 2, restructure or weaken the administrative state. So this is sort of like an add-on to the executive power. They want to replace all career civil services, right? They want to weaken the government. And people will say, good, we need a smaller government. Bullshit. That's ridiculous. They want to weaken the government so there's less pushback against the executive branch. Number 3, they want to roll back regulations. So let me say that again. Roll back regulations. Who does that help? If you take away regulations, who does that help? It allows the exploitation by companies, by billionaires, and by all those interests that can exploit us. So across environment, that means air and water. So they want to roll back regulations, water and air protections, labor protections, finance protections, health protections, and education. They want to roll back all of that. That's one of their core goals in Project 2025. Number 4, this is where the map comes really important here. Reorient U.S. foreign policy towards nationalism and transactional alliances. Really important. So when they're talking about Greenland and taking Greenland, they want to move towards nationalism. What do you think of when you think of nationalism? When I think of nationalism, I think of fascist governments like Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. That is fascism, and that is nationalism. Anyone that's using nationalism to get the majority to go along with them, that is to hide their weaknesses, and that is to destroy democracy. And they also want transactional alliances. So what does that mean? For those of you that are watching, our alliances are not based on transactions. Our alliances currently are based on rules and values, shared values and shared rules. And then we have those alliances. That's why we have the alliance, of course, with Europe. We have shared values with Europe. We have many shared values with South America, certain countries in Africa. We have shared values all over the South China Sea. Those shared values are, again, freedom, liberty, the rule of law. Those are all shared values that the United States used to promote around the world. That's not, and I wonder if when I'm moving this map, if I cut out in my audio, if you can let me know in the comments. All right, so they want to reorient U.S. foreign policy. What does that mean? Reorient U.S. foreign policy towards nationalism. That doesn't mean, that's not some little thing. That is a complete abandoning of the global world order or the rules-based world order. So people need to understand that the Heritage Foundation doesn't believe in the current world order. It does not believe in the world order that FDR and Churchill created after World War II, where we're moving into a world where diplomacy is how you solve problems. That's why the UN was created. That's why the UN Charter was created, where diplomacy is supposed to be how you resolve differences with each other. That's not what the Heritage Foundation wants. They want to do through dominance, where you rule through strength and you rule through powers, where the rules only apply if they benefit you. This is exactly a type of policy or position that the Russians take, and that to some extent the Chinese take. The rules only apply when they're good for you, because you're not working within actual rules, within actual values. It only works when it's transactional. So they want to change the entire world order. That's what they mean by reorient US foreign policy towards nationalism and transactional alliances. So when you're seeing Trump wanting to take Greenland and making deals, it's easy for him because that's all he understands of how to make a deal. So he's being convinced by all the operatives of the Heritage Foundation that are in his inner circle and orbit that it's easy to manipulate him and use him as a puppet, because the one thing he understands is how to try and make a deal, even though all of his deals are basically failed deals. But that's what he understands. He understands transactions. That's how his entire relationship and value system works. Trump doesn't have relationships based on shared values, meaning integrity, trustworthiness, values, any of those things. That's not how Trump's relationships work. Trump's relationships with one another are only good when there's a transactional benefit for both parties. You can look at Musk. It worked for a while until it didn't, and it might work again. These relationships between Trump and any of the people in his life, even family members, they're only beneficial when he gets something out of it, because that's all he understands. All right, core goal number 5 of the Heritage Foundation. It's to impose conservative social policy using federal authority. I can't make this up, everybody. Thanks for everybody for being here, by the way. And by the way, please hit the follow button and the likes. I've been doing a lot of videos. The videos have been going semi-viral. This is really awesome to have so many people here. I hope someday, instead of having 340 people here, we'll have 34,000 people here or even more, because it's important for Americans to understand this. So the 5th core goal of the Heritage Foundation, again, I want to see people in the comments. What do you guys think? Is, oh, thanks for the follows. I see all the follows and I see all the likes and the live goals. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to get to why I'm talking about this, because I don't self-promote enough, and I need to remember to do it more often. So remember, impose conservative social policy using federal authority. Can someone in the comments let me know what you think about that? When you think of the Heritage Foundation imposing conservative social policy using federal authority, read between the lines. I'm going to wait for a couple of comments, even on Instagram, and maybe, I don't know if there's someone on YouTube, I can't see you there, but there's a lot of people here on TikTok. So what do you guys think when one of the core goals, the 5th core goal of the Heritage Foundation, is to impose conservative social policy using federal authority? Thank you for the hat. Economy is pie. If one takes all, the rest have zero. That's right. $75 billion puppeteer. Thanks for everybody for watching on IG. By the way, the Instagram audience has been exploding. I just started Instagram about 6 weeks ago. Already at close to 30,000 followers. So it's really good to see. Now I'm going to go through the comments here. Sounds like white nationalism. Yes. Handmaid's Tale. No deals. Handmaids. What was on YouTube came over here in the middle. Yeah, I can read your comments here on TikTok. Obviously, YouTube has the landscape view, so you get to see more context when it comes to the map. I'm still going to get to the new world order that's coming up, unless the United States society takes back our government. Because right now, we don't have a government for the people, by the people. Right now, we have a government for the Heritage Foundation by Project 2025, or vice versa. This is a government being run by the Heritage Foundation. This is not a government for the people, by the people, not even close. So someone mentioned white nationalism. So the 5th core goal, I'm going to repeat it one more time, impose conservative social policy using federal authority. When I hear those words, impose conservative social policy, that means impose conservative, religious, white nationalist social policy. That means a warped view of Christian nationalism as the social policy. What that also means to me is they want to tell us, like all religions do, not just that one, how to behave and how to act. That's what that means. When they impose conservative social policy, they don't even comprehend the Constitution, because the Constitution is a secular document, meaning that no law can be created based on religion. We're a melting pot. We're freedom of religion. You can do as you want. Total freedom of religion and everything else, right? That's what it's supposed to be. This is not what the Heritage Foundation believes in. So that means they do not believe in the Constitution, because they want to eliminate or replace the Constitution. They want to turn us into a theocracy. And a theocracy is nothing more than a religious state. So that's not what the United States of America and the Founding Fathers, how it was designed. The Founding Fathers, many of them, most of them were Protestants, a form of Christianity. And they, even at that time, 250 years ago, did not want to create a religious state. They knew the problems that came along with that. So they purposely decided, even though they were Protestants, that they would not create a religious state. They would not create a Christian state. But that's what the Heritage Foundation wants. They want us to be a Christian nationalist state. And that is bad for everybody, not just people that look like me, and that don't look like me. It's bad for everybody. They will leverage and exploit all of the people, because you will not have the freedom of religion, you will not have freedoms, you will not have liberties, and we will no longer operate by the rule of law. We will operate by the rule or rules or the laws of religion. This is Iran, people. This is like being a Muslim state like Iran, where a radical government takes over the government and operates it as a religious state. That's what they're moving towards. So those are the 5 core values of the Heritage Foundation. Remember, number 1, centralize executive power. Become a dictatorship. Restructure or weaken the administrative state. Get rid of all the government agencies, weaken the FBI, weaken the CIA, weaken the government agencies, the independence of those agencies so they can't interfere with the dictatorship. Roll back regulations. Does anyone in the Commons thinking rolling back regulations across environment, the labor, finance, health, and education is anything that helps regular Americans? Absolutely not. Regulations are government's way, our government. The only reason you have government is a democratic government. It's supposed to be to protect the people. That's the reason you have government itself, is to protect the people from foreign invasion and from exploitation, even within the country, whether it's religious persecution, whether it's corporate exploitation, or whether it's foreign invasion. The role of government is to protect society. So people often get that wrong. Now, you may not like big government or whatever you think is big government, but you need to have effective government. And the Heritage Foundation wants to roll back regulations. That only helps the wealthy, the billionaires, the elites that are in control of the economy, whether it's the technology economy, whether it's the resource economy, whether it's the financial part of the economy, all those different industries. They want less regulation and more exploitation. That's how you can just connect the dots. Less regulation, more exploitation. That's why a lot of Silicon Valley billionaires claim to be libertarians, because they think that less regulation is good. So roll back regulations. The 4th thing is reorient U.S. foreign policy, which just means change the entire global world order. So for those of you who think that just the Heritage Foundation is just designed to change the internal workings of the United States, that's not how this works. They're going to change the entire global world order that's based on rules and values and change it just to something that's based on power, where the United States has as much power as it can have and controls its hemisphere, as you can see here on the map. So I'm going to take a couple comments, and then we're going to move on to the New World Order and what that looks like. Most of the Supreme Court is in the Epstein files, right? You know, when I'm going to have a video tomorrow about Mike Johnson when he said that the entire political system is going to fall if they release the Epstein files. What a ridiculous! I'm going to tear that apart in a video tomorrow. So please remember to follow. Hit the button on the top of the screen to follow and share the videos, please. So now let's go to the map again and talk about the future world order. Actually, hang on, everybody. Thanks for hitting the follows when I ask you to do. It's really nice because I know we all forget. So we have some trolls here like Becky, let it fall. You want the current world order to fall, or you want the Heritage Foundation to fall? That'd be interesting. All right, so I'm going to put something up on the screen that I will not be able to put up on YouTube, but just on TikTok. It's the 28th and 29th Amendment, because this is why I do this account. Before I show you what the future world order is going to look like, I want people to understand that if there were 50 million people who wanted to push back and didn't want our government to be hijacked and completely taken over by the Heritage Foundation, I only see one solution. And that is 50 million people coming together that want to support a 28th and a 29th Amendment. That when people say, how do you destroy the Heritage Foundation? How do you get rid of the Heritage Foundation? It's not just the Heritage Foundation. You have to go even a little bit deeper. Even though the Heritage Foundation is the one controlling America, what you want to do is eliminate money from politics, because the way the Heritage Foundation has infiltrated the government is through greed. It's through money. The way AIPAC has infiltrated the government is through greed and money. The way corporate special interests have invaded the government is through greed and money. It's because the old saying that Citizens United, that corporations are people. We're not talking about regular corporations. We're talking about political organizations and the creation of super PACs and dark money. If the United States has any chance, and this applies to the rest of the world, those of you that are watching from around the world, this applies to you as well. You have to go to the root cancer of the problem. And it doesn't have to be a laundry list of things. It just has to be a one thing. And that's the 28th Amendment, where you would ban money and influence and greed from the political system, because corporations are not people and money is not speech. And you can't do it by just recalling Citizens United. You have to actually have an amendment. The Supreme Court has already said so. They would not even entertain revising Citizens United. A constitutional amendment is the only way to get rid of the 527 super PACs and the 503c4s, which are dark money organizations. So when you talk about Walmart contributes too much money to elections and Exxon's, they do. That's called normal corporate special interest money. That is nefarious and sinister enough, and it has tremendous impact on all of our lives. But that's not what I'm talking about here. When I'm talking about the Silicon Valley billionaires and their lobbyists, when I'm talking about AIPAC, when I'm talking about the Heritage Foundation, when I'm talking about all the industries, I'm talking about dark money. These are companies that only exist for one thing only, and that's to manipulate and infiltrate politics, because the money has rights, meaning they have liberties and rights, meaning these super PACs and these companies can influence elections. So we do not have a government for the people, by the people. We have a government that's for the super PACs, by the super PACs. We have it for the dark money. We may vote for one of two parties, but that's it. We don't have any, the representatives represent them, represent the Heritage Foundation, represent AIPAC, represent the billionaires, as Bernie often talks about the billionaires, and represents criminals, not the people. And the only way to ever solve that is to have a 28th Amendment. And it is possible, people. In the last century alone, in the 1900s, there were 12 constitutional amendments that were passed. Everyone thinks that you can't pass a constitutional amendment. You can. We just haven't tried to do it because we all believe that we can't change the Constitution. It was designed to change. It was designed to evolve. And if there's only one thing that you could do to change almost everything, is implement a 28th Amendment. And you know the existing people, this sounds impossible when both parties take money for it. That's right, how to trash Panda. So you're right. But I got Alexa going on in the background. Here's how you change it. When you have 50 million people or more And you would definitely have more because there's 200 million people that would agree with the 28th Amendment. There's probably not a MAGA person here that would disagree with the 28th Amendment. So there are 200 to 300 million Americans that would all support the 28th Amendment. But you don't even need that many. You need 50 million. You need 50 million that come to a foundational principle that money cannot be impacting elections, cannot be impacting the political system. If you do that, if you have 50 million people, the existing politicians will absolutely support it because the people will be demanding it. And if they don't support it, you replace those people. And then you enact the 28th Amendment, you propose and you ratify it with 3/4 of the states. I know it sounds like a big deal, but I promise you, out of all the research I've done, this is the only thing that solves virtually everything. And it's the only thing that almost everyone will agree with, is that if you have 50 million people supporting it, just like you have 50 million people who support Trump, meaning MAGA, when you have 50 million people that support you, you can do anything, whether that's for nefarious purposes or that's for legitimate purposes. If you have 50 million people, you can destroy the world or you can change the world and have a complete course correction and change it for the better. It's simply a matter of support, and that's why I do this channel. So now I'm going to go to what the current world order looks like, the future world order. If we don't get to pass the 28th Amendment and we don't ban money and corruption, which would annihilate and destroy and dissolve the Heritage Foundation, it would dissolve the corporate special interests, it would dissolve AIPAC. If you could dissolve all the different, I think I have it right here, if you could dissolve all the super PACs, all the dark money, you would fix everything. I don't care if you agree with a particular issue that I have. So if I stand for, universal health care, I don't care if you agree with me or not. You don't have to agree with my views on particular issues. All I want and what all you want is, most of you, is our representatives to represent society, to represent people over profits, to represent people, human beings, individuals, citizens, not corporations, not super PACs, not dark money. If you could do that, where congressional leaders can't enrich themselves, because you don't have these things, then you would have a whole new breed of elected politicians that would go into office that would represent their constituents. You would not get everything that you want. Everything would not fall your way. But what I would promise you, whether you're MAGA, liberal, libertarian, progressive, whatever, it will change everyone's life and it will turn America into that shining beacon on the hill once again. And it's just one thing. It's a 28th Amendment, but it takes 50 million people to do it. We need a figurehead to do this like MAGA had a figurehead. Absolutely. How to Trash Panda. You're right. You need someone. And the reason I do this is to try and inspire. We need more than a president. We need 435 House of Representatives to be either on board with this or be replaced. You need 100 senators to be on board with this or replaced. And you need a president to be on board with this or replaced. One of those two things. So if you start building an audience, like I've just started to do, if I can ever get to 1 million followers, and thanks for the 100 new followers just on this live alone, which is awesome. We're a far way away, but I can help organize and inspire this thing to happen because it is the only thing that can change. So I'm going to go to the future world order. What does the world look like if we don't do this? So let me see. Again, thanks for all the follows. Thanks for the likes. And I hope you do support a 28th Amendment. Let me know in the comments, actually, so we can boost up the comments and get this shown on the FYP page. If you support a 28th and 29th Amendment, put 1 in the comments, please. If you don't support the 28th Amendment, just the 28th, please put a 2. I'm going to see if there's any 2s, any legitimate 2s. There is a reason not to support. Oh, awesome. See all those 1s. Beautiful. And I don't see a single 2 yet. All 1s. If you support a 28th Amendment, throw in the 1s. If you support a and then we're going to do the 29th Amendment in a second. I'm going to see if I get any 2s. Awesome. So everybody, look at that. See, this just shows you. I've done these videos. I've done hundreds of millions of views at this point and tens of thousands of comments. Not one person has ever said that they don't agree with the 28th Amendment. Not one. Now let's do a 29th Amendment. Let me tell you about it first. Pro28A. Thank you for using that hashtag, Pro28A. It's meant to be a play on the acronym for Pro2A, right? Pro28A. I'm making some merch soon that will help me pay for people that can help me edit more videos. They're going to be Pro28A and Pro229 shirts that support Pro28, 20th Amendment and 29th Amendment. And I'm going to have some merch that might help me be able to afford being able to pay some editors to do some videos and so forth. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. I'm going to try it. I don't know if it's going to work. But eventually, I just can't do enough videos. I can't do enough lives. I can't edit them, think about them, edit them, publish them everywhere, write articles about them. You know, it's a very big proposition that I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to be more efficient with everything that I'm doing. So thank you very much for the Pro28A support. Awesome. Thanks, Still Living. Appreciate it. So I'm going to do some merch on that. But anyway, now let's do a 29th Amendment. For those of you who are here, let's say we didn't have a 28th and it was just a 29th Amendment. I'm going to do a little test for you all first here. Would you support a 29th Amendment if it was just the 29th Amendment, meaning no career politicians, meaning term limits? If being a politician should be a temporary public service and it should not be a career. That would be the 29th Amendment, that we also need a 29th Amendment. So if you believe in the 29th Amendment by itself, put a 1 in the comments. And if you believe in a 29th Amendment or you don't believe in a 29th Amendment, put a 2. Because I have something that is going to maybe confuse some people on how I stand on this. So everyone also supports so far. I don't see any 2s. No 2s. Everybody's a 1. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Okay. We have to get rid of Citizens United. That has to happen through a 28th Amendment. All right. Now let me tell you something that may confuse you. I wouldn't support a 29th Amendment by itself. No, we don't, Josh. Bro, we don't have a 28th Amendment. We only have 27 amendments. Bro. 27 amendments. The 29th Amendment, being no career politicians, term limits, it only works when it's combined in conjunction with a 28th Amendment. The 28th Amendment and the 29th Amendment have to happen together. Term limits by themselves have been proven to be ineffective. They actually accelerate people who are trying to scam the system or trying to enrich themselves. So if you go into politics and you have term limits, but you don't have the ability to stop your self-enrichment, you actually will accelerate that corruption. And there's many other reasons that you shouldn't just have term limits. They sound great, but they're actually not the solution. However, when it's combined with eliminating money in politics and self-enrichment with strong criminal prosecution, then the 29th Amendment and term limits works. You have to have them combined. It's really important to have these combined and not to have them separate. Term limits, and when I talk about term limits, some people say, well, you need experience. We're not talking about just 2 years and you go to the House of Representatives and then you're out, that you can't serve longer. But if you go to the House of Representatives, it might be 4 terms, 8 years. So you have term limits, 8 years. That's enough. You don't need to stay longer. But if you want to then move to the Senate, you can do that. So you can still be a politician for a long time. You can go to the Senate for 2 terms, which would be 12 years. So 8 years plus 12 years is 20 years. It is good to have some, if people earn it, to have experience in politics. It is good, but not to have people staying in the Senate for 60 years, like Joe Biden was in the Senate, like Mitch McConnell is, and many senators that are dinosaurs, because the Senate is like the greatest senior home the world has ever seen. You have a staff, you get free food, you get paid, you get attended to, so you can just die in the Senate. It makes no sense to have someone that can be in the Senate for 50 and 60 years. So 2 term limits for the Senate, 4 term limits for the House. And then if you're so good and you want to be president and you've earned it, you could also do a presidency. So when I say term limits, doesn't mean you won't have experience. You will have plenty of people that are in politics for a while. They just won't be able to stay in politics for their entire life. And you might have term limits at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. So you work your way up from the local, state, and federal, or you just go to federal, however you want to do it. There's just many ways to implement term limits properly, just like we have term limits on the presidency. Can you imagine now not having a term limit on the president right now? You know how much we would all be freaking out if there were no term limits in the presidency? Think about that. And we need them everywhere. Facts, Schumer, McConnell, Graham, all those guys, way too old. Okay, so thanks for hanging in there. Now we're going to go back to the map because this is important. So we talked about this is what the Heritage Foundation wants the map to look like. They want the United States to control, not just to control, to dominate the entire Western Hemisphere. Now let's look what like China might look like. So here's what the Heritage Foundation essentially is saying, that by abandoning NATO and by just dominating the Western Hemisphere, they are essentially being okay with relinquishing power to China. Optimus Prime, what are you saying, Optimus Prime? No felons too. I don't know if you're talking to me. Jim, ranked choice voting before any of that. No, Jim, ranked choice voting, because it has to happen at the state level, wouldn't be a constitution. It would be the cherry on the top. And it would be after the 29th Amendment, where you have as much ranked choice voting as possible, because that would reduce the power of both parties. That would allow independents to run for office. That would also allow third parties to form. So that is like the magic formula that I talk about is a 28th Amendment, a 29th Amendment, and then ranked choice voting in as many states as possible. Those three things change all of our lives forever. It changes everyone's future forever. This is why it's so important. So here's China right now. This is what will happen if the United States and the Heritage Foundation abandon its control or its spreading of democracy around the world, a rules-based world order. Is everybody ready for this? Boom. Here is the new China in the future. So you have in this lighter purple is you have China as it stands today. If the United States recoils from the world and it doesn't promote democracy and it doesn't promote freedom and liberty, this is what will happen with China. China wants to dominate its hemisphere. And the Heritage Foundation essentially, you want me to zoom out, Nitish? Okay, zoom out. That a little bit better. You should be able to see that. I'll move out of the way a little bit. Maybe I can move the camera. Okay, so this is what likely happens with China, is China will dominate the South China Sea. That means I'm going to zoom back in. I'm going to zoom in now so everybody can see. Taiwan is included. It will take over Taiwan. It will want to dominate the Philippines. It will probably want to dominate the Singapore area and Malaysia so they can have access to the strait in order to make sure it's oils. This is actually probably not doing it justice. They will want to dominate their hemisphere just like the Heritage Foundation wants to dominate the Western Hemisphere. This will expand. You can see my mouse. This will expand most likely to dominate this entire region here and also Indonesia and everything south of the South China Sea. And it will also want to dominate the far east of Russia. And everyone knows this already. Russia's biggest threat is not the United States. It is China. This all used to be part of China before. This is heavily populated by Chinese, there's more Chinese in this area than there are Russians. And there's tremendous amount of resources in the northern Far East, resources that China doesn't have, oil and gas. So oil and gas resources are up here in China. China will want to take back the Far East, back from Russia, and extend it all the way up to Siberia. This is what the Heritage Foundation is essentially saying. They're going to take a hard stance to China, and they will try and prohibit this from happening. But remember, we are recoiling in this new world order that's coming, that we will recoil and we will basically give up and let China be the dominant player in the entire Asian region or Asian Pacific. And as Democracy Mike says, That will most likely include Australia, just like China. Canada will become a vassal state of the United States. To some regard, China will also want to dominate even Australia. So it may even extend down to this area. But there's no doubt that these two regions is what China will seek to attain as quickly as possible if the United States abandons NATO and Korea as well. You're probably right. Probably even Korea as well. Absolutely. They'll want to try and dominate Korea. You're right. I should probably expand this map. Japan is the unknown here because Japan and China have been mortal enemies for centuries. So how that works out, remember, we're going to a less peaceful world, everybody, if this happens. If the United States people don't rise up and demand the current world order stays intact, this will happen. And this is going to be dangerous, not just for those people, not just for Japan and our current allies in the Asian region. It will impact us dramatically as well. But the Heritage Foundation doesn't care about that whatsoever. So you might say, well, Russia is going to have a say in this. Russia is not going to allow China to take this region. They don't have a choice. China is far more powerful. They're more technology advanced. They have far more people, and Russia is weak. Russia is incredibly weak. So Russia will probably make that deal. And I'm going to show you what Russia most likely looks like, because Russia is much more interested in, I'm going to zoom out and show you the influence of Russia. Here is what Russia looks like. Let me zoom out so you guys can see it on TikTok. So in the light red is current Russia and their influence. They would probably make the deal with China, because they don't have a choice, that they would have to relinquish the Far East. Otherwise, they're going into a major war. This is the lake, right? I think that's as well as lake. What's the name of that lake again? I see it in the comments. It starts with a B. There's a major lake that China wants, and I believe it's right here. It's right here. So they would probably extend all the way to take this lake, because I think it's the largest freshwater lake in the world. All right, so this is what Russia looks like. If this new world order, if the Heritage Foundation gets its way, because these are sick individuals, they will relinquish Eastern Europe to the Russians, if they can take it. And that's a big if. So Russia here, right here, they used to control the Soviet Union, which is also right here. And they will seek, I'm not saying they'll be able to do it. They will seek to take back the old Soviet Union. So that's all the regions in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and of course, Belarus, Ukraine, Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, Slovakia, Hungary, Turkey, Czechia, and Poland. All those countries, and of course extend down into Georgia and Azerbaijan, and then take back also the former Soviet republics of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. You must say that was pretty impressive, right? I actually pronounced those pretty well, and I'm not really great at pronunciation. So this is the future tripolar world order. Now, the difference with Russia is they are weak. Can they actually go in and take back Eastern Europe? That's a big if. Over time, they might be able to do it. But make no mistake about it, whether they can do it or whether they will try and do it are very different things. They will absolutely try and do it. Whether they can do it is unknown, but they will try. And that try will have ramifications to all of us, because we're getting into a tripolar world where imperialism, power, dominates the world. And that is dangerous, because we're supposed to be in a world where rules and values and the rule of law is the way the world functions since 1945. So this is the future potential Russia in the tripolar axis. At the very least, everyone, you're going to have a bipolar axis of domination between the United States in the Western Hemisphere and China in the Far East. They will dominate. Whether Russia becomes the tripolar is the unknown. Whether the alliance, so most people think NATO, even if the United States takes Greenland and somehow we destroy the NATO alliance. Let me flip this around a little. If we destroy the NATO alliance, people will think, well, NATO will just continue. I have a lot of people in Europe that think, well, Europe is going to be fine because NATO will continue to remain in effect in Europe. So let's go take a look at that. That might be true for a little while. With these many big players, China is going to have a tremendous influence over Europe. Europe is going to have to pick a friend, a trading partner, is going to have to pick the lesser of all evils. Who is the lesser of all evils? If NATO remains intact, which it would if they kick the United States out, NATO will remain intact and will probably be quite powerful for a while. But Europe is going to be on an island right here, and it needs friends. It needs allies. Who do you think their friend is going to be? Should they turn to China? Should they turn to Russia? Will they still trust the United States? They will have to make trading alliances. They will have to have an alliance in order to make sure they can protect themselves. And while NATO will remain in effect for a while, Europe has a really bad history, a dangerous history of imperialistic nations, Germany, Russia, others, from expanding. So when you go into a militarized world with these great powers, all these countries will continue to militarize. And while they're friends today, there's no guarantee that they remain allies, because the amount of force or influence that these other great powers of the United States, Russia, and China will apply on them is dramatic. And there's no guarantee. It's almost certain NATO would survive for a period of time, but eventually it will probably fall apart. And when that falls apart, the entire world, it's unthinkable what will probably happen. Because if the United States is the heartbeat of the world's democracy, the European Union is the brain of democracy. It is the allegiance of democracy to today. So we're the heartbeat of democracy, and I think Europe at this point is the current the beholder of democracy on that. I don't think I phrased that very well, but I think you probably get the gist of that. So that is the tripolar world order that we're looking at, everybody. If the Heritage Foundation, so those of you that are joining late, this is all about the Heritage Foundation taking over the United States government, not conspiracy. All right here. All these people, whole list of Project 2025 operatives, agents, whatever you want to call them, backers that are completely infiltrated the executive branch of government, the Supreme Court, and many parts of Congress. So the Heritage Foundation is the number one most dangerous organization in the world. It's more dangerous than any country. I think it's more dangerous than any country. The Heritage Foundation is by itself several hundred people in the Heritage Foundation and their supporters, from the Coors family, Coors Brewing, the people that fund the Heritage Foundation, to the plan that the Heritage Foundation has, to the people that are working for the Heritage Foundation, in the Heritage Foundation, and inside of government. They are the most dangerous organization in the world. They are more dangerous than Russia. They are currently more dangerous than China, and they are more dangerous than North Korea, Iran, whoever you want to name. This, to the United States population, is by far the most dangerous threat. And it's not even a threat at this point. They are the domestic teas, right? They are the organization that's trying to tear down the United States and democracy, the Constitution. And if you tear down the Constitution and you tear down democracy in the United States, democracy and self-rule, the idea of self-rule, where a people should have their own governments, that the people should have representation, that will be extinguished throughout the world over time. Without the United States remaining as a democracy, it's unlikely that over time any other government, major government, will ever have a democracy. And then when you don't have democracies leading the world, then you have empires. It's very binary. NATO calls Trump daddy. I saw that. We live in a fantasy world. All right, I'm going to take some questions. NATO is going to get us all nuked. Oh, hodl crypto. Oh boy, hodl crypto. You know that guy's a libertarian hijacked mental libertarian. I've worked with a lot of crypto people. You guys are all lost your mind because you don't understand how politics actually works, because libertarianism is not actually a practical philosophy in terms of politics. It's bullshit. Less government, no regulation, and people will do the right thing. That's what libertarians believe. You've lost your mind. Libertarianism doesn't exist as a political structure in the world for a reason, because it's utopia. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. So that's what I hodl crypto. I know you're probably a libertarian because you're probably consider yourself a crypto bro, and that's what all crypto bros think. They're libertarians. Crypto dudes are weird AF, no doubt about it. Didn't people leave the Heritage Foundation? Yes, in the middle 235. Some people, not the Israel part of the Heritage Foundation. So there was Project Esther in the Heritage Foundation. They were a pro-Judeo-Christian group within the Heritage Foundation. Project Esther ended up quitting because there was the thing with Nick Fuentes. So the pro-Israel faction within the Heritage Foundation broke up with the Heritage Foundation because the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and Project Esther were working together. Project Esther broke apart from the Heritage Foundation, and now they're essentially just sort of like pro-Israel lobbies that they don't seemingly aren't working with the Heritage Foundation, because you can imagine the Heritage Foundation has its own white Christian identity that they're trying to pursue. They are white supremes, basically, and that doesn't always mesh so well with, of course, the Jewish state or the Jewish religion. So that's how that worked. But I mentioned that the Heritage Foundation was imploding a few months ago. I was mistaken. I didn't understand until I did much more research that the Heritage Foundation was just evolving from a very extreme conservative organization to a white nationalist organization. The Heritage Foundation is evolving into total white supremacy. That's how the Heritage Foundation is. It's changing. It's evolving. It's getting more dangerous, more powerful, not less powerful. Thanks for all the comments, everybody. Thanks for all the likes and follows. Just remember a call out to follow. And if you want to support a 28th Amendment, I'm going to take some questions now. This is the only thing that saves us. I still challenge anyone to figure out anything that will ever save the United States of America unless the people, 50 million people, rise up to pass the 28th Amendment. Because the 28th Amendment would eliminate the Heritage Foundation. It would eliminate, that's interesting. It would eliminate the Silicon Valley billionaires and the Curtis Yarvin faction or the neo-reactionary faction. It would eliminate APAC. It would eliminate corporate special interests, so the oil industry having direct access to our government officials. When you saw all those billionaires sitting behind Trump in the inauguration in front of the congressional leaders, that's all you needed to know, that our government, our president, the executive branch, represented the billionaires and the Heritage Foundation more than it does the congressional leaders. Is this in grassroots? Where are we? What do we need? How do we get to 50 million followers? Light, it's a great question. I have a full plan on what we would do. This is the plan on what we would do if we ever got to 50 million, but nothing else matters right now. So there's a plan to recruit candidates, to get ballot access, to govern and pass 28th amendments. All of that could change. The only thing that matters right now is there an appetite for 50 million Americans to support a 28th and 29th Amendment? That's all I care about. So that's why I'm doing these lives. That's why I'm doing my videos, to test, to experiment. Can I even get to 1 million subscribers, to 1 million followers, to 1 million supporters? And by the way, you can go to the link underneath my profile. There's a support button there. I'd ask you to please leave your email address. I won't spam you or anything. I can't trust the social media networks to continue to expose these lives and the videos to everybody. We all know about suppression and so forth. So I have to build an external list. I have thousands of people that have now filled out and just giving me their name and address. You don't have to give me your full name. I don't care. Just need an email address so that we can work on things in the future. But if I ever can get to 1 million subscribers and 1 million followers, I'm not trying to be a content creator. I'm trying to make change. And none of us can do it. None of us can do it unless someone becomes relevant. And I would like to become relevant, so help organize this group and then to recruit 536 other people who want to be civic servants, who want to promote the 28th Amendment. We don't need a new president, one new person. We need a transformational change in government. And that can only happen with 50 million people demanding it. People say it's impossible, it can't happen. 1992, Ross Perot proved that there was a chance for it to happen. It could happen again, but the Republican and Democratic Party doesn't want you to believe that there is an alternative to them. But you can't just create a party first. That's nonsense. You have to have support. You have to have a movement. You have to have people promoting a 28th Amendment, not promoting what needs to happen with immigration, not promoting what needs to happen with healthcare. It's not about policy. It's not about issues. It's about fundamentals. This is the most important thing. And it's a thing that everyone agrees with. MAGA, liberals, independents, libertarians, everyone would agree with this. So it doesn't create division. It creates unity. So you may disagree with a lot of people on where they stand about particular policies and issues. That's okay. That will sort itself out if you can get rid of the money. There is a common enemy or a common adversary that all of us have, and that is money in politics. It is the billionaires. It is the religious radicals. It is the groups from AIPAC and the Heritage Foundation. Those are our enemies. It's all of our enemies. Those are the adversaries. Jade, I mean, awesome. Thanks for signing up. And remember, yeah, hit the support. I don't promote it enough. I need to do it. Cloquette, there's a lot of ways we would demand a 28th Amendment. But again, if I can get to 1 million followers and subscribers, I am almost certain I'll get to 10 million. And if I get to 10 million, I'll get to 50 million, because this is, I've done the polls. I've done everyone agrees with these things. So it's a matter of creating a wave. It's a matter of getting enough influence. And it's very binary. People that will say this will never happen or you're delusional, you might be right. If you don't get to 1 million people, you'll never get to 10 million. But if you get to 10 million, you'll get to 50 million, because then you have network effects. Then you have critical mass. You have enough people talking about it. The biggest challenge I have right now is, how do I get enough people to talk about this? Because right now I have 60 or 70,000 overall followers and subscribers. I got to get to 1 million. So I've only been doing this 6 months. If I can accelerate that and get to 1 million, I promise you, I promise everyone here, we'll get to 10 million. And when we get to 10 million, we'll get to 50 million even faster than it took us to get to 10 million. How fast that happens, I don't know, but it's binary. If we don't get 50 million people to support a 28th Amendment, then this all goes away. This is what's happening. This will happen. What you're seeing on the map, this will be the future reality for the world, for future generations, and for our kids, and even for ourselves. We will be living in a world that is full of war, that is nothing to do with the rule of law, and it has nothing to do with freedom and liberties. This new world order that we're moving towards, without 50 million Americans, and that's the thing about it, what's interesting, is 50 million Americans can change everything for the entire world. That's what I don't think people realize. This is not just for the United States. Europeans, I speak to Europeans all the time on these shows. They know as well as, like, Americans, what the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you standing up? Why aren't you doing something? And that's right, because we live in a government for the people, by the people. And even in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson said, if the government is not representing the people, it's the people's responsibility. It's their duty to change it. That's what Thomas Jefferson said right in the Declaration of Independence. And many other founding fathers expressed the exact same thing or similar things, that the people have to be the ones that rise up. In every generation of Americans, every series of generations, so X, Y, and Z right now, and boomers, X, Y, Z, and boomers right now, they haven't done anything to protect freedom and liberty and the rule of law. Every series of generations before this one, the civil rights movement, the voting rights movement, World War II, World War I, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, all those things. Every generation has stood up to protect freedoms and liberties. In this generation, or this series of generations, X, Y, Z, and boomers have to do something. Because if we don't, the rest of the world, including us, pays the price. This is our responsibility. It's a duty. And people have to understand that democracy is an experiment, and it's meant to be an eternal experiment. If you stop participating, it dies. And when it dies, it either moves left or right. You get fascists and you get communism, one or the other. It just falls off a cliff. Democracy and the self-rule is right in the middle, and it's a balancing act. And it requires the people of all of its societies to make sure that it remains that way. If the people of the United States abandon the Constitution, abandon the rule of law, it all goes away. It's really simple. This is not a spectator sport. Democracy is a participation sport. And at this point, we all know it, that the United States population, or a large segment of them, need to take their heads out of their asses, need to realize that money is the cancer, power is the cancer, control is the cancer, and all those things are our enemy. No billionaire is going to save it for us. No politician is going to come and save it for us. The only thing that can save it is 50 million people supporting the right agenda and the right motive, and that has to be a 28th Amendment. So I know I pop that up and down on the screen. So with that said, I'm going to go to a small panel, and then I'm just going to take a couple questions on the panel. If you have a question, jump into the panel, jump in. I'm just going to take about 2 minutes for each person. If anyone wants to connect directly, join the panel. I can't take people on IG. Thanks for everybody on IG for being here. I really do appreciate everybody that's here. And China has infiltrated. So let's go. Let's take some guests. Let's see if there's any guests waiting. Cloquette, you're already in here. I don't know how you're in here because I didn't accept you. Can you hear me, Cloquette?
Yes.
How did you jump in? Because I don't think I accepted you.
I don't know.
That's interesting. I'm not bashing you for it. I'm just curious. The TikTok gods. Did you mean to request up?
Yes.
Okay. So did you have a question or a comment that you want to say to the audience?
Oh, no. You might have answered it. I was trying to figure out how can we dismantle the Heritage Foundation, and how do we work to get the 28th Amendment?
Oh, okay. I see who invited you in. So it used to be it's Nitsua, my moderator, which I didn't recognize the name. Invited you. Like I said, yeah, everyone would say, I get lots of comments, and I did answer it, but it's good to answer it again, that in order to dismantle, because everyone has their own idea. I believe that the Heritage Foundation is the most dangerous organization in the world, right? But a lot of people think it's APAC. Some people would think it's the Silicon Valley billionaires. Some people would think would be the oil industry or something else, right? But they all have the same thing in common. It's you have to get rid of the money. If you get rid of the money, then they all die. They all suffocate. If you don't get rid of the money, they all thrive.
Are there specific companies to avoid that support the foundation?
Oh, great question. Love that question. I don't know if I have you as a moderator, maybe seeding these questions for me, because that's perfect. So there are some that you can avoid. You can try and avoid. There are some that you can't. So the two big ones are the Coors family from the Coors Brewing Company. They've been backers of the Heritage Foundation since its inception in 1974. So stay away from them. Walmart and the Walmart family, the Walton family, is a big part of supporting the Heritage Foundation. Then you also have a lot of oil and gas industries, which those are harder to avoid. And then you also have a lot of finance industries that are also harder to avoid. So it's hard to give you a specific list other than knowing that you definitely want to stay from organizations like Walmart if you can, the Coors family, but there are literally hundreds of them.
Okay.
It might be good to do a future video on that to show all the different organizations, because like boycotting these organizations would work, but when I talk about it takes 50 million people to have a 28th Amendment, you'd almost need like at least 10 million just to do a boycott of any significance. Like when people say boycotts and protests, yeah, you should, but they don't have a lot of, you still need the same, you still need a lot of influence to make it a dent, right? So if you're going to go make a dent, you may as well go for the jugular, and you may well do the thing that ultimately fixes everything.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. Appreciate you having you here. Okay, so Yen T215, you're up first, and G-Dog. And by the way, Mr. G or Austin, thank you for jumping in and moderating. I appreciate that.
Hi, TK. How you been?
I'm doing okay. I'm rambling a lot today, Yen, but I think that's normal.
I love it. Thank you. I love being educated. I jumped in a little bit too late when you started. When I came in, can you please explain to me again about the global order of why he concentrated on Greenland, what was happening? Because I just literally jumped in. So can you please explain that to
Yeah,
me?
I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So it's going to be pretty simple. So Trump claiming he wants Greenland is not because Trump wants Greenland. It's because the Heritage Foundation in Project 2025 has expressed that they want to control and dominate the entire Western Hemisphere. So the Heritage Foundation and all of the agents of the Heritage Foundation, and Trump is surrounded by them. There are dozens of operatives from the Heritage Foundation that make up the majority of Trump's cabinet and Trump's agency officials and so forth. They are all Heritage Foundation agents. The Heritage Foundation wants the United States to dominate the entire Western Hemisphere. This is why they took over Maduro out of Venezuela. It's why they threatened Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, and now why they're threatening even Greenland and of course Canada before. Because the Heritage Foundation believes that the United States should no longer promote freedom and democracy around the world, and it just wants to be dominating our Western Hemisphere. And that, of course, includes Greenland, because Greenland's proximity is closest to North America. And Greenland opens up opportunities in the future for lots of resources. So some of our resources that come from China, there's probably a belief that Greenland will hold some of those resources. And by dominating the entire Western Hemisphere, the United States can be completely self-sufficient and basically cut the rest of the world loose. Basically say, we don't need to protect anybody else. We don't need to have free trade around the world. We don't need to have our Navy policing, pirating around the world. And we don't need to be promoting democracy, because we're only going to care about our hemisphere, just like we did in World War I, which that didn't work out so well for us. So that is the idea of Greenland. It's to take over the entire Western Hemisphere and control. And it's right here in the mandate for leadership, and that's Project 2025. So
Yeah, I read that partially of the outline of it. I didn't actually purchase the original book with the whole outline. I mean, with the whole details. So I was halfway into the book that I bought, and I did not get to that part yet. So
yeah, there's 990 pages. It's a lot, right? But here's the excerpt that you should pay attention to. It's, quote, the U.S. should unapologetically pursue American interests in the Arctic. That's the line.
Okay, I didn't purchase the original book, but I bought like an outlining of it. So I didn't see that part yet. So I know about the Heritage Foundation, Heritage Action. It listed some of the corporations that back them up, but I was curious to what you were saying.
Yeah.
I understand now what you're saying when you broke that down.
Yeah, so now basically the rest of that summary is, if the United States takes over its hemisphere, it no longer needs the rest of the world for anything. This is their belief, right? This is their warped belief that they can cut the rest of the world loose, including Europe. And they will also then essentially relinquish the entire South Asian, the entire Asian continent and the South China Sea and all of our allies. They will basically cut them loose as well and let China dominate its hemisphere. So they are basically, even though they're going to try and take a hard stance to China, they're basically saying, okay, we're going to control our hemisphere and you can do whatever the hell you want in your hemisphere. That's what the new world looks like.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining, Yan. I'm going to take G-Dog next. G-Dog, you there?
Yes. Okay.
Thanks for joining.
Am I on?
Yeah, sorry for the long wait.
No problem. Okay, so you just came across my feed. I guess I was following you before, and you said some pretty interesting things. The 50 million people you said that would be needed. How do you get that figure? Is that like based on a percentage of the population? Or this is how amendments are introduced?
Well, so you're right. It's not scientific. It's a percentage of the voting population. So there's around 152 million people that vote in the United States presidential elections, in the general election, right? So you need at least 50 million. So 50 million is the low number. You'd most likely need more, because you'd need to have viable candidates, either candidates that are going to support those 50 million or replace those 50 million. Or another way to look at it is MAGA has less than 50 million hardcore MAGA supporters. And they've shown that it's not a majority, but a large segment of the population, 50 million-ish, has enormous impact. So with 50 million people that support a common objective or some person, that you can infiltrate and take over an existing party. So you are basically unstoppable at 50 million, even though it's only 1/3 of the voting population. Now, when it comes to actual voting, it might need to be higher, but you have to understand once you have a movement, just like MAGA, but in the opposite way, like an opposite MAGA, you could do the exact same thing with relatively the same numbers. Hope that makes sense.
Are you currently working with some content creators?
There are many content creators that are starting to promote what I'm trying to promote, but it's very early on in this. So not directly.
Because I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you know Dean Santana and Parker.
Yes.
If you reach out to those guys, they've got a great following, and, I'm sure all those people would be on board, assuming they're of voting age.
Yeah.
I was also thinking, like, off the top of my head, like, I would just maybe ask ChatGPT, like, what would be the fastest, most effective way to garner 50 million people in support of, adding some amendments to the Constitution.
There's a simple formula for that. It's just be a blowhole as much as you can. It's just like Trump. You have to become relevant first. So whether that's, I hope to have podcasts in the future. I hope to be on a lot of other shows and be able to promote it. I've reached out to both Parker and Dean in the past as well, but of course they never let you on their debates unless you're just a Trump hater. I also can't stand that they're doing the same thing on the left. What the right does is basically just grifting and arguing over and creating division. And it frustrates me that they have, millions of supporters, but they don't use that support to actually solve a problem. And it's frustrating.
I disagree. I've been following them for years. I don't think they promote divisiveness. I think what they do is they promote education. I'm on the Democratic or the liberal side, the progressive side, but I've learned so much over the years, things that I didn't know. And I think there's a big issue with the Democratic Party. I mean, because they don't know how to message properly. And everybody says that. But, like, if you say to people, why are we supporting Ukraine? Why do we have to give them money? Like, most people have never heard of the Budapest Memorandum. I never heard of it until I was listening to the podcast. But there's a lot of things like that I think, people need to be educated on. And people still don't know that after all these years.
Right.
Why we were supporting Ukraine.
No, I understand your point of view. Yeah. So if you're on the left, you probably understand, like, they are trying to educate, and they are doing some of that. But the problem is they're also creating division, because when you belittle people for their beliefs, then you actually create division as well. So while they might be turning a few minds here and there, they're also hardening those positions. And that's the part that I don't like.
Yeah, I guess that's a matter of opinion. I don't think they really do the belittling. There is sometimes some laughter when somebody says, especially on the MAGA side, some ridiculous things, just because they don't carry any facts with them, and they assume that an opinion carries the same weight as a fact.
Right. But I will continue to reach out to them. I'll continue to reach out.
Just ask you something.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, they have a Discord, and I'm not part of it, but if you jumped
I
on
am.
the Discord and reached out, maybe that would be, because I don't think they will take people on there.
Right.
On their, But anyway, let me ask you this, because I was writing down some questions. You said something that this 28th and 29th Amendment would possibly get rid of, like dark money kinds of things, right?
Yep.
So that would mean the end of Citizens United as well? Like, that would be something separate for that?
You wouldn't need something separate for Citizens United, because it would essentially just completely override it. Citizens United is a singular court ruling and Citizens United essentially gave constitutional protection to the idea that corporations have personhood, right? So
Right.
Basically through the 14th Amendment, has some sort of constitutional protection. That's why it has to be in the constitutional, basically to remove that protection. And the 28th Amendment would remove that sort of protections that the Supreme Court, through some warped sort of, what do you want to call it, interpretation, right? It's a bullshit interpretation. It goes against the Constitution. So you basically have to have it as an amendment because you already have the Supreme Court leveraging the 14th Amendment to make this even possible in the first place.
Yeah, we're pretty much our enemies.
Right.
Has the 28th and 29th Amendments, or have other amendments been brought up? Because I don't know anything about this kind of thing. Have these things, not specifically, have these ideas been brought up before the Congress, or how this, before political leaders who, could bring this?
No one
to the legislature?
There have been various ideas on different types of 28th and 29th amendments, but nothing has ever gotten enough traction in this last 40 years. The last 12 amendments were passed in the 1900s, which is only, so there were 12 amendments passed from 1900 to 1999 or 1992. By the first 25 years of the 20th century, in the 1900s, there were 4 constitutional amendments passed. And I always say there's 26 years, we're into the 2000s, and there hasn't even been one proposal for one. Not one. So not like one serious proposal, right? It's their ideas, and these things are floated around from time to time.
And have you been able to bring this to anybody like AOC or,
No, because I'm nobody, right? I'm a nobody. You're a nobody. I think you're all nobodies. And until there's enough influence, no one will take you serious.
So how would that be if you had not a mob, but a group of people? How would it be presented? Would they just find out about you just because you're out there? Because would be a growing movement, or it would be something that you have to reach out to them for?
Oh, both. I would hope that the mob, as you call it, or movement, they would be, people have connections to other people. Maybe people would share it. Maybe people get me on podcasts. Maybe people get me on all types of other to expose it even broader. But at the end of the day, you need to be relevant for anyone to pay attention. And like, one person's idea is stupid. Like, no one gives a shit about one person's idea, but one person's idea that's supported by 1 million people all of a sudden becomes like freaking really powerful shit, right?
I totally agree with you, because I feel like there are so many people in the sports and celebrities in the world where they have millions of viewers, tens of millions, and they're not doing it enough. They're not doing anything really, as far as I can see, to either mobilize, organize, or just, understand what we're going through, because I guess, they're part of that 1%, maybe.
I don't understand what the culture of just complaining and bitching without actually putting forth real solutions. Like, everybody gets caught up about trying to solve one particular issue. And the problem with that is, for every issue you add on to another issue, is you get people that disagree with it. So that's why I always come back to looking at the root cause and look at whether you're MAGA or anyone else, even if you don't agree with issues, is what is the thing where there's a landing spot for everybody? And what is you got to be like a surgeon, right? You got to find out what is the root cause causing all the other tumors throughout the body. And it has to be the one thing. And everyone just gets I don't understand why, but everybody gets caught up arguing about issues. And yes, they're important. I get why they're talking about them, but I don't understand why they don't look deeper and actually, how is the ultimate fix? How does that come up? Maybe because our mindsets are, things are so out of whack that anything broad or anything bold is impossible. But I actually think bold ideas, think of Mamdani in New York. He came out of nowhere just in the past 18 months, right? So people who think that these things can't happen quickly, in today's day and age, they absolutely can, but not just because of one person does it. It has because that movement has momentum, and people are like, hey, did you ever hear about that guy talking about the 20th Amendment to ban money? And people will be like, yeah, that would be amazing. That's how things happen.
Another thing that I don't understand, besides like all the celebrities and sports figures, why don't Democratic governors band together? Why aren't Democratic mayors and governors banding together and making vocal statements? I don't understand.
It's very simple. I'll tell you why. Because the system is perverted by money. The system runs on money, both in the Republican and the Democratic Party. So the only way to get a nomination or to be part of, have the support of your party, and to get money from the party side, not just raising money yourself, but you also get money from the party side, right? And from dark money and from super PACs. So the whole system, so people go in, some people go in with good intentions, thinking, like, I'm going to be different. But then you realize, well, I have to take money to get elected. Well, then once you start taking money to get elected, now you've perverted yourself, and now you're playing the game. And then you make an excuse to play the game even more and more. So both parties and the entire system is corrupted by money. And that's why no one will talk about it. Even Bernie and AOC don't talk about the root cause. They talk about the problem with billionaires, but they don't go far enough, because they are, well, Bernie and AOC don't take any money anymore from super PACs and anybody else, but they're still part of that system.
Yeah, I just saw TikTok something about Mark Warner, and I was kind of disappointed to hear that what was it, for the supporting more funding for ICE? Like, why would any Democrat in the Senate be for supporting more money for ICE?
Good question. I don't think any of it, I haven't figured it out yet either. But anyway, I'm going to take the next guest.
Yeah, very smart guy. I'm glad I ran into you, and best of luck to you. I'll catch you back another time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining the show.
Okay, sure.
All right, who do we have next? That is, I don't know the username.
Hello. Call me Mark.
What's up, Mark? How are you today?
I'm good. I'm not from America. I'm from Europe. So if I can give like a EU perspective.
I get a lot of people from Europe. I've had a lot of people from Denmark and Greenland lately, and Belgium and others. So awesome. Where are you from?
I'm from Italy.
Italia. Welcome.
Yeah, so Trump's plan, he wants to ally Russia to go against his main enemy, which he sees as China, because China beat the US in like industry, rare earths materials. They own like 90% of the world's rare earth material refining factories. And Greenland has a lot of these. And
maybe
the US government actually tried to stop the Danish government for accepting a Chinese company from building like a deep water port in Greenland. And not only that, they also own a uranium mine in Greenland. So you can see why the US government would be concerned about this, since it's really on its doorstep.
Well, as someone in the comments pointed out, Tucker Carlson is a Russian supporter. He's also a mouthpiece for the Heritage Foundation. So there are a lot of Russian influences within the Heritage Foundation. Russia's always trying to influence every government around the world to get in its best interest. That's nothing new. So there are some Russian influences. The Russian influence, though, mostly with Greenland, is for the United States to take Greenland so that it would essentially their attempt to dissolve NATO, right? So that Russia, even in their own warped minds, think that they would go back after trying to take their former Soviet republics.
I mean, you can see like already now they are not really succeeding. Like Ukraine is putting up a fight even with minimal help from the other EU countries, but I don't honestly think the Russian influence is that much in the Republican side. Even like the fucking Chinese had influence on the Democrats.
Okay, I can tell you. Let me interrupt you, because you may not think that, but I know it to be true. So you got Boris Efferson, born in Moscow, a close confidant of Trump. Born in Moscow, Steve Witkoff, many relationships with Russian oligarchs. Jared Kushner, very much the same. Then in the past, you've had Felix Slater and many others. So not even directly with the Heritage Foundation, directly connected to Trump. Trump has many people in his orbit that are directly connected to not only Russian-born nationals, also part of the former Soviet Union before it was the FSB with the KGB, and many others. So you're not really right about that. There are many Russian influences directly tied to Trump.
Sure, but Trump wouldn't go directly into doing the interests of Russia if there wasn't a real geostrategic reason to do
Well, Trump will
Which-
play against Russia at times, like when he did in Venezuela and Cuba. But when it's in works in his transactional best interest, like taking Greenland, or in other facets, he will use, like for instance, Witkoff and Kushner. They want this. There's a lot of opportunities for them in Ukraine in the future by dividing up Ukraine and its resources, right? So when it works in his best favors, he's very apologetic.
Can I interrupt you for a bit?
Just give me one. You got 1 minute, and then I'm going to go to the next guest.
Yeah, you're kind of pushing it because, like, if you pay close attention, it's not only Venezuela the U.S. got involved in; it's Syria. Azerbaijan got pulled out of Russia's sphere of influence.
Yep.
If you see the stuff that's going on in Romania, Iran, Georgia, that's like the work of the U.S. State Department.
No, it's not. What are you talking about? What's the work? Where? In Romania? What are you talking about?
Look at Azerbaijan. They kind of cut ties with Russia. If you look at Venezuela, that's obviously the work of the Department of War.
So let me ask you a qualifying question. What about Ukraine? Was the U.S. State Department actively pursuing Ukraine to move towards the EU?
No, I think that's the EU's doing.
Okay.
Biden had some doing with it.
That's a good answer because there is no proof that America had, other than slight support by embracing, not encouraging, but supporting the movement for Ukraine to become a democracy. The United States was in support of that, but there is no proof whatsoever. So you answer that well. There is no proof that the United States ever tried to overthrow the previous government, Lukashenko, in Ukraine.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Yep. Yeah, a lot of people did.
Yeah, I think he's just putting on the economic strain of supporting Ukraine and the EU. And like from experience, EU countries like are very stagnant economically. So they keep supporting that war. What?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, from experience.
I'm waiting my turn. I didn't realize that.
If I can't stop talking.
All right. Well, thanks for joining from Italy. I appreciate it. Here's the point I want to leave you with from what I'm sorry, I forgot the name. But anyway, Mark, the United States since 1945 has been an advocate for, even though we've overstepped our skis at times, we promote democracy, freedom, and liberty and the rules-based world order. That's what the United States American values are supposed to be based on. This government, this administration is abandoning that. So whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Ukraine, wherever it is, and again, we should.
I think that's your ideological mythology.
No, that's the hold on. That's the vision of the United States. Not to say that it's always acted on its best vision. Okay.
It's PR. It's not.
Oh, stop it. There's no equivalency between the imperialist nations and empire building and dictators, even though America has done many things wrong. We've stood on, the best statesmen and the best presidents have stood on promoting democracy and freedom and the rules-based world order, even though we haven't done that anywhere near perfection. But for you to claim there's any sort of equivalency to anything else is absurd.
Because I remember them here, they stopped the Communist Party from winning elections by actually rigging them.
Oh, okay.
And they did a lot of coups in South America, so.
A lot of problems in South America. You're right about that.
Like Pinochet. I don't know if that rings bells.
All right, I'm going to take Michelle next, but thanks for joining. I appreciate you. See you, Mark.
How do I get out?
I got you. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, how's it going?
Sorry to make you wait so long. It sounded like you were chomping at the bit.
It's totally fine. It was actually interesting to hear and listen to. It was kind of funny to a point. Obviously, I'm from Ireland, if you can't tell.
Yes.
But listen, that young chap there that was just on, I understand his Oh, are you zoning in on where I'm from?
I'm going to zoom in right on you.
You want to go straight in, go Tipperary. Go straight to Tipperary.
Oh, I know where you were already. I was going to zoom right in there. You were going to be surprised.
Yeah. Oh, fuck you, God. Anyway, yeah, Ireland is great.
All right.
The above.
There we are. So, Michelle from Ireland, what do you have for us?
Well, for me, I suppose it's, well, for everybody in Ireland. I'm not speaking for everybody in Ireland, but like it's very weird at the moment. You know, we live in, unfortunately for us in Ireland, our economy depends totally on the US economy. I don't know if most people know that, but that is a fact. But we have a huge amount of what's called soft power, I suppose. When you talk about governmental things, we have a huge amount of soft power. So we're very instrumental and implemental in all things. So everybody wants to be, because we're we're not part of NATO. We are a neutral country, right? So like Switzerland, that's it. There's only like Switzerland and Ireland. But apart from that, we're not really neutral because our airport in Shannon is pretty much a United States Air Force base. Do you know what I mean? So we are legally neutral, but we allow this to happen. And why do we do that? Because after World War II and with the advent of NATO, and when I say we, I mean Europeans, allowed the United States to become the security backstop, right?
Right.
So
that was the grand promise. Right.
Yeah, that was it. We were like, okay, you have all of this stuff, so we will allow you to have all your bases here, there, and everywhere, but you are the security backstop.
Yep.
And we entrusted in that, and that's why us, like Ireland, a neutral country, we don't allow any other country in the world to set their military planes down on our soil or fly over our international airspace, but the United States military, which is so annoying to me now, you know, because it's like, yeah, so we're neutral, but this is what's happening. And look, at the end of the day, it's fine, but at the moment it's an issue for Irish people because we are.
Yeah, because we're now the bad guys, and all of a sudden the bad guys are now still landing the planes on your land, right?
Well, to be fair, like for Irish people, the last Gulf War, you were definitely the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like Irish people we're the most educated population of people on the planet. That's a statistical fact. We also, like, you know, we know where we exist economically, right? So we're not willing to say, okay, we're just going to shut that off and then we will lose economic power. But at the end of the day, it's a worry. But what I do fear about a huge amount is that what I can't understand or what I can't quite comprehend is the American people or the American population's ability to become so engaged in a very strange way with their politicians.
It's called identity politics, right? Because when everything in the United States is about a duopoly, right? You pick a sports team, you hate your other sports team. You pick a company, you buy General Motors cars, you don't buy Ford cars, or vice versa. Everything is becoming, and politics in the United States is no different because we only have now, relatively speaking, we only have two legitimate parties. And what happens is, this is nothing about Americans. This has happened in Europe and everywhere else. This is all humanity becomes tribal, right? So when you have only one of two choices, you pick a team. This is how all of humanity works, and especially humanity that's like 4 generations removed from anything really bad happening. So we're about the 4th generation away from World War II. With each generation that you get away from a sort of cataclysmic event, the population starts to forget history because the new people just think it's so far long ago. So this happened in Germany. This happens in every country and every empire around the world. So, people say it's Americans. I say it's a humanity, a human condition problem. And it's an education problem, as you pointed out. The lack of our education system educating people about what are American values, what is the Constitution, how does the rule of law actually operate, and why. Our education system is garbage, right? So this is the type of thing that you get when you promote nationalism. When any leader comes along, you would have the same thing in Ireland. When any leader comes along and your country might be under threat or pretend threat, and they promote nationalism and they use a majority of their population to blame everything on some minorities, whether that's race, religion, whatever it might be. Nationalism is the recipe. This is what Xi uses in China. This is what Putin uses. This is what Hitler used, and what Trump is using. And the Heritage Foundation is using nationalism. Nationalism is mentioned all over Project 2025. And nationalism is just a playbook, a strategy to divide its people in order to assume power. It happens everywhere.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but in Ireland at the moment we have a weird but looming. I say looming because it's not large, but it's the loudest people who exist of nationalism that's happening in Ireland. So UCD, which is the University of Dublin, did a study last year, and they tracked all the hashtags that said Ireland for the Irish, Ireland, get rid of the foreigners, all of this type of things. And they followed all of the IP addresses, and they all came from North America. Isn't that wild?
Was it related to where? Did they ever zero it down to somewhere specific, like the Fox groups or anything like that?
No, they just they narrowed it down to the United States. Like,
so my guess, without knowing, is most likely operatives within the Heritage Foundation as well, because they.
We 100% know that that's happening. Like, we've never had. This would be considered a Catholic country. Nobody is outspoken about their religion or anything that they do, but we're also we don't have any religion in this country. It's the same.
Right, but that's why you have like the Murdoch family owns, I think, 70 different companies around the world and news companies. You have Musk, of course, trying to stoke those fears in Germany and in the UK. So you have these same operatives, these same groups, which are the Silicon Valley billionaires and the WC nationalists from the Heritage Foundation, that are trying to promote this around the world. This is I wouldn't surprise me, right? That's what you're seeing.
So what UCD found out was, in their study, they found out that there was a concerted effort, a serious amount of money being piped into the Irish space. So what they could only understand is they were like, why would North American people want to do this? And then they were like, okay, it has to be Christian and Christian in its values. And then they were like, okay, it's got to do with whiteness, we guess. So they assume that it's like Ireland to these people is the last white place that exists, and we will keep all the foreigners out of it. It's the last place that has a small amount of foreigners. And as an Irish person, like, I mean, obviously that's dog shit to Irish people, but it's interesting because it exists. The studies are there. UCD did it, and the BBC. And the funny thing is that UCD did that study a year and a half ago, and the BBC, which is British Broadcasting, the UK's main broadcasting company, they actually found additional evidence of it, and then they produced a whole article about it about 3 or 4 months ago. So that's where we are in Ireland. We're like trying to fight off. We're a neutral country, and we're also very liberal, as in not as in American liberal, as in we just believe everybody deserves human rights. That's what we believe. But at the same time, because we're so small, we have massive amounts of money being pumped into propaganda into our country, try and make us hate each other. It's wild.
Well, you always remember in every population, you have a percentage of sociopaths, psychopaths, evildoers, and people who believe in either fascism or nationalism. You always have these freaks. And once you just have to stoke the flame, right? And you can start to normalize these things. So if you go to like whatever, it's 10% or 20%, they're there. You talk about Irish people believe in certain things, just like the Americans used to believe in American values in the Constitution. But now you have like 40% of Americans that don't even believe in the Constitution and the rule of law anymore. So like that, there's always those embers that are burning at the grassroots level. And you just have to have people that are stoking those embers and starting to normalize it, and that starts to grow. But anyway, I'm going to take Johan next. I appreciate you being here from Ireland.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello, Johan. By your name, I'm suspicious that you also are probably somewhere in Europe, or no?
Yes, I'm from Finland. Hello. Nice talking to you.
You too. Let's zoom in.
Yeah, go ahead. So I'd like to think about this from kind of a military perspective, as we heard from our leader, Alexander Stubb, when he was at the summit in Switzerland. He talked a lot about like the military stuff and our history with Russia and the border we have with Russia and how we've kind of prepared for Arctic warfare with Russia, essentially. So the thing that, or I'm looking at this whole Greenland thing from kind of a military strategic perspective. Also from what Donald Trump's been commenting on Greenland and why he would want to take over Greenland, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a question for you that I actually don't know the answer of is how many troops in the U.S. are trained in Arctic warfare?
Oh, I don't know that answer, but not as many as you have in Finland.
Yeah, well, I figured, and I guess that they've been training mostly in Alaska, right?
In Greenland. Greenland has a space base there, but yes, most likely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm thinking about most is like, why would he want to have Greenland for like a military strategic or like a geographical point when there are actually not that many troops that are trained to fight there right now?
So you probably haven't been on the live that long, right?
No.
All right. So I'm going to give you the very clear answer because I've been studying this for a while, researching this, and I thought it had to do with resources, and I thought it had to do mostly with Russia promoting it so it can break up NATO, but it's actually not any of that. It's not a guess either. It's right here. I have it on a piece of paper. It's the mandate for leadership. This is 900 pages long, but there's an excerpt right here, which I know you can't see, but I'm holding it up. And it's part of Project 2025. And this is the Heritage Foundation. Are you familiar with the Heritage Foundation in the United States?
No.
So the Heritage Foundation, I call the most dangerous organization in the world. It's always been a conservative organization, but now it's become like a white supremacist organization, and the WC nationalists, white Christian nationalists. So this plan, you've heard of Project 2025 though?
Yeah.
Okay, so Project 2025 is the plan from the Heritage Foundation. It's called a Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025. In their plan, and I'm going to zoom out so you can see it on the map, the Heritage Foundation promotes that the United States should no longer be a global player, a global power, that it should be a power only in its Western Hemisphere. And in order to do that, it wants to dominate the entire Western Hemisphere more than it already does. And it wants to cut loose NATO and the rest of the world from America promoting freedoms and democracy and the rule of law. The Heritage Foundation does not believe in the Constitution. It does not believe in democracy. It believes in their first core goal is to centralize executive power, which means a dictatorship, right? One of their other core goals is to reorient U.S. foreign policy towards nationalism and transactional alliances, which just means if it's not good for us, we don't give a shit about you. So the Heritage Foundation has this 900-page Project 2025 that says right here in one of its things, the U.S. should unapologetically pursue American interests in the Arctic. So this is not Trump. So like you and many of your leaders, including Macron from France, was wondering, like, they still don't understand why the United States wants, or why Trump wants Greenland. It's not Trump that wants Greenland. All the people in Trump's orbit, from Pam Bondi to, I got a whole list of that, the entire Heritage Foundation agents are surrounding Trump, and they have promoted Project 2025. So it's Project 2025's goal to change the entire world order. And even your politicians don't understand because they just hear Trump talking, so they think it's his idea. It's not. This is an entire strategic change to the entire world order based on this fundamental outline of how the United States should behave around the world. So it's a complete recoiling. And that's why they want Greenland, because potentially Greenland would also have resources that we don't have to rely on China for some of those resources today. And of course, Greenland then also protects the entire Western Hemisphere, as I'm zooming in here, so now we would have control of the Arctic from Alaska all the way through Greenland, right? So this entire region of the Arctic would be under the United States control. And that's what the Heritage Foundation wants, even though that's absurd, because we both know that we have as much access to Greenland as we ever need militarily right now. But this is not how religious ideologues think.
No, I got you. Yeah, I'd like to go back to I understand all this, and thank you for clarifying. It's so hard for me to not look at in what situation we are right now, and even with all these ideologies of wanting to dominate and everything like that, you need the knowledge, military knowledge, and the manpower. I know you got great manpower. I know you have a large military, but not as I said in the beginning, not men who are or persons who are specialized in Arctic training, or have gone through that much Arctic training. So I've myself done. I did a year in the Finnish military 3 years ago. I'm quite young yet, so I can comfortably say that not even within the year that I was in the Finnish military did I gain any expertise in that within Arctic training. I can't say that I'm a really good Arctic fighter. It's just that I just can't understand why they would go up, why they would pursue this kind of.
See, let me answer. I think I have the answer for you. You are thinking of it like a Finn who's actually has to worry about land invasions from Russia. And what your training has taught you is you need to be an Arctic fighter. The United States doesn't have to have any Arctic fighters, because we would never have a land invasion. The Heritage Foundation would never have to worry about that, or Trump, because there's never going to be a land invasion in the Arctic for the United States. So you're thinking it as a Finn. We don't need any Arctic trained soldiers because we're not going to fight a war. We're just going to control the Arctic so that we can ensure that if there is any ballistic missiles launched at the United States, that we can have more of an umbrella to protect ourselves.
Right, but couldn't Russia go to Alaska?
No.
Russia
can't even go through the Ukraine.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's really true. But theoretically, yeah, okay. Yeah,
No, well,
I get it.
first of all, they don't even have railway systems to get all the way to the Far East. Then they would have to go across that area, which is not that far. But then you don't land on anywhere in Alaska that has the population in Alaska. So no, this is so far impossible to invade Alaska to get to the United States. It's so absurd, right? It's laughable, and that's why I did laugh.
No, I
I understand geography wise, it makes sense, right? Oh, of course they could come, they have ships and boats, but come on, we have aircraft carriers and all kinds of other things. It's so we don't have to have Arctic fighters. So I understand your point of view, but the United States doesn't need them. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, it's funny because there were like Marines when I was in the military. There were Marines at our base in Finland, and we had like because every person who goes through the Finnish conscription, they have like a end type of war. Like for a week we play war, and then we had our war against the Marines, right? And then we asked them, because it was like purely army, like ground fighting, and we asked them, like, in a real situation, what would have you done to defeat us, right? And they just said, we would just have called in the bombers and
right.
and sat like and just looked at the bombs dropping and go for a cleanup and it puts it into perspective.
Yeah, you're gonna fight. You would fight a drone war or a war with, oh my gosh, 152 millimeter rounds, right? You would fight a war. That's the type of war you have to train for. That's not the type of war the United States has to train for.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
What is it?
We do have a great artillery and things like that. So I feel very safe actually.
What's the border length? Is it how many? 700 kilometers? Is that right?
It's 1,300 kilometers.
Wow,
roughly.
700 miles or so, more than 700 miles, right?
Yeah, I don't know miles, but yeah, 1,300, and I could comfortably say that like 60% of that is just it's forest. It's nothing.
Right.
So a lot of the cities in Finland are generally like located in the south, and there are two main cities in the north, Rovaniemi and Oulu, up there.
Yeah.
And besides that, it's basically just forest. So
right.
Yeah, really rough terrain and really hard for like anything like armored tanks or something to get through, because it's so dense forest up there. So
right.
So yeah.
What is it? What was the name of the war? The 5-day war, or?
So we had like the Winter War.
The Winter War. That's right.
Yeah, and then the continuation war. So Russia first invaded, and then we fought them for 4 years, and then we gave them basically, or we had like a ceasefire, and then they attacked us again. So that was then the continuation war.
Oh, right.
And then because of the continuation war, we had to give up our Hanko Peninsula, which is like the most southern point.
Right,
like,
it's right there.
Of the whole country. No. Actually, more to the west. It's actually in Finland. So we had to give up territory in Finland.
Oh, they're right here.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, no, more to the west, even more to the west. It's like in the middle of Finland, actually, like middle south.
What do you mean? This is the border from Finland right here, right?
No. So we had to give territory within Finland to Russia.
Right. You meant more to the east, I think.
No. If you go west.
Yeah.
You see a place called Hanko. It's in the south. It's to the west of Espoo, which you have there. Even more to the west.
Well, Helsinki's right here.
Yeah, so it's Hanko. You see Hanko.
Oh, right here. Yeah, but that's part of Finland.
Peninsula. We had to give Russia that peninsula, right? So that peninsula right there was under Russian occupation for like.
Okay. I thought you meant currently.
No. But like back in the days, like
right.
1940s, 1950s. So like we had to give Russia a piece of land within Finland to make them stop like attacking us and come to a peace deal.
Someone in the comments mentioned, what's wrong with Russia, and you're pointing it out. Russia has always been an invader, a mafia state. They do not operate based on values and based on rules. They always just take as much as they can take. That's how the entire culture has operated for 800 years, right? So this is why you have to. Yeah.
Exactly, and this is so obvious to us. So that's why we have this like huge reserves and things like that, because we know that we're always in the risk of, even though the risk would be like under 10%, because I generally don't think Russia has the capabilities right now to invade another country, at least at full scale. But like we always know that there is the potential of like an attack.
Yeah, like the movie Jurassic Park, where the velociraptors are testing the fences. They will always be testing the fences.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, now with Ukraine, Russia has built or activated more bases in the military bases in the north. They built up like runways, military runways, and we've seen a lot of satellite footage here of like Russian bases pop up more in our border region.
Right.
But
there's no one there. They build some bases, but there's no people there.
Exactly. It's just showcase.
Right.
It's just, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining the show. Tell your politicians if the politicians want to understand what's happening with the Heritage Foundation and why this is not Trump, that this is much deeper and more nefarious, have them reach out to me.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. All right. Have a good time.
Thanks, Johan. Appreciate it. All right. Last guest is Juan Carlos. Just like 2 minutes, Juan, and I'm gonna shut it down for the night and go over one last thing and one last call out for everybody here. Please remember to follow. Please repost my videos to promote a 28th Amendment. I know it sounds crazy to some people that we need a 28th Amendment, but that's what has to happen if we ever want to restore the rule of law to this country and save the rules-based world order. Then you're going to have to do a 28th Amendment. It's going to take 50 million people. It's very binary. If 50 million people support it, it happens. If 50 million people don't support it, it doesn't happen. What's up, Juan?
Hey, this is a great live. Getting the information for the European crowd is interesting, and your map breakdown is really good. I like it.
Thanks. Like all of us, we're trying to figure out why Trump talks about Greenland so much, and you just have to go back and read the Project 2025. It's all in here.
No, exactly. But all the American corporate media is so stuck on every time Donald Trump opens his mouth, they just follow. And unfortunately, he's got a playbook where he knows how to dictate the media. He knows how to have the media basically follow him. So you're seeing it happen right now. This thing in Greenland. Who knows how serious he was? Because we all know that there's no way he's going to take over Greenland by force. We all knew that. But you saw the stock market just take a dump.
Well, don't rule it out, because remember, the Heritage Foundation they're about speed and efficiency. They only know they have a small amount of time. So don't be surprised if next week this really ramps up again. It's a pressure campaign, right? It's not necessarily a military campaign yet. So I would be hesitant, because you got all the Heritage Foundation agents, Russell Vogt, Stephen Miller, Caroline Levitt, they're all in his inner circle. So when he comes back home, they're going to be pounding him like, let's go. We need to take Greenland. This has to happen.
Yeah. But you know what? Do you think, let me throw this out there. Do you think intentionally devaluing the dollar for him is this is a strategy? Because all the billionaires that, were at his inauguration, they just want, you know what? You can only be so rich. Elon Musk, you can only, how much more money do you want? Is it about money or is it about power? And being able to take over, more territory all over the world is power, right? So devaluing the dollar, which is what's happening right now. You're seeing the Chinese currency, they're moving away from the dollar. And they're getting, Canada just did a deal with China. Russia and China are kind of collaborating on a deal. So are we seeing our own president basically manipulating the dollar for his benefit?
He's not doing it for his benefit. First of all, the Heritage Foundation, they don't necessarily want to de-dollarize, and de-dollarization is not going to happen anytime soon. It is going to get weaker. But there's nothing to replace the dollar. And that's still about power. So while it is getting weaker, but the Heritage Foundation does not really care about that first and foremost. They care about ideology, right? They care about power. They control social issues. So the economic sort of repercussions or pain that they'll have to feel by becoming an isolationist Western Hemisphere is something they're willing to do, because in their minds, they believe they're just reorganizing the current world order, and the Western Hemisphere will be ours. And if there's some pain, and the billionaires don't like it, right? Absolutely. But the billionaires aren't the ideologues. The billionaires are just a second-tier citizen within the Heritage Foundation that they leverage, right? The ideologues are the dangerous freaks.
No, I totally agree. But when we had the the situation with Bush and the Iraq War, the Heritage Foundation was just as strong. The only difference was they would basically would have a different public persona. Now it's all in the open.
Well,
now they're saying the quiet part out loud.
Well, listen, they have always been powerful, but now they have infiltrated government. So they had control 6 of the 9 Supreme Court justices.
Right.
They control the majority of the executive branch. So now they are not just an external think tank that's influencing politics. They are the government at this point.
Totally.
Right. So they've decided they can't work through education anymore. They actually need to have a coup, right? This is essentially a coup.
Yeah. No, it's really bizarre to try to understand, because when you even before the elections, right? When you hear the whole idea of Project 2025, when you read the details, anybody in their right mind is going to say, wait a minute, this is crazy. How could any American fall for this?
Well, they do put it in a little bit of cryptic language. It's a little sophisticated, right? But when you just parse through, even when they say about NATO, when it says NATO must develop and implement an Arctic strategy that recognizes the importance of the region. But they've just dropped NATO from it. They don't give a fuck about NATO. So, and it says the U.S. should, and then it goes on to say the U.S. should unapologetically pursue American interests in the Arctic. So it's all parsing through, the sort of sophisticated language of what a think tank would create.
Totally. But you know what? My actually, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, you know what? We need to start a live where we go after the Democratic Party for their lack of responsibility, because they've always just sat back and let the conservatives and the Republicans and the neocons basically dictate policy. They've always done it, even with Obama. Do you remember when Al Gore lost to George Bush?
Right. Yep.
Al Gore had a legitimate grievance for the nomination, and he basically said, "Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to contest this."
Well, because he was basically operating on values and just saying it's for the good of the country, but he didn't realize that you can't appease power, right? You can never appease power. You have to meet power with power.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So my whole thing was like, wait a minute. Okay, so when Obama comes in, and Obama's like, hope and change, and the whole world, the whole electorate was like, oh, this guy, you know what? This guy is smart. He's articulate, and he's got the right idea. And he's able to unite the country. And then Obama comes in, and they just walk all over him, and he just sits back and just lets it happen. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I understand the situation with power and authoritarianism, but Obama, unfortunately, every Democratic leader, even Bernie Sanders, because I'm in California and I was a big Bernie Sanders guy. Even Bernie Sanders got to a point where he's like, you know what, we're going to have a revolution. I'm gonna basically unite the left. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Okay, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm voting for Biden." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what?"
Right.
Half of your followers are going to say, "You know what? We're out. We're going to go look at somebody else."
Right.
And that's exactly what happened.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I said only 2 minutes, but obviously we went a lot longer than that, and that's fine.
Listen, I respect you. Great live. Keep going. You're doing amazing work. And
We'll see.
I'll see you next
I
time.
only need
Come around.
I only need 49,990 something thousand more people, and we're good to go.
I'm one of them, bro.
All right.
I'm one of them.
Thanks,
All right?
thanks, brother.
Respect.
Appreciate it.
All right.
See
Take
ya.
care.
All right, everyone that's here, the 300 people are here. One last call for please follow the live. And more importantly, I'm going to do the same live tomorrow around 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So if you want to understand the Heritage Foundation's plan from the beginning, I'll try and be more succinct tomorrow, that the Heritage Foundation wants to let the rest of the world or cut the rest of the world loose. And it wants complete control over the Western Hemisphere, which I'm blinking in the background. And that's why it wants Greenland. So the Heritage Foundation is behind Trump's pursuit of taking Greenland and making sure that there are no foreign influences anywhere in our hemisphere, including in Venezuela right here. That's why what happened with Maduro, what they threatening Cuba, threatening Colombia, threatening Mexico, is the Heritage Foundation, not Trump. And it's all in Project 2025. It's all right here that the Heritage Foundation wants to change the entire rules-based world order. So those of you that are watching, if you can share this live tomorrow, I'm going to schedule the live for tomorrow so that everybody knows. We had 300 plus people in here today. I'd love to have 600 people or more tomorrow. I'm going to do, again, like I said, the same live tomorrow, explaining, because even the French president, Macron, doesn't understand why Trump is pushing so hard for Greenland. And it has nothing to do with, well, not nothing to do. It has not Trump's idea. This is the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 fulfilling their goals, their strategic goals to take over the entire Western Hemisphere and then cut the rest of the world loose, including NATO, and then to allow China to dominate their region and their hemisphere, and then eventually to let, if Russia can do it, then let Russia basically have an attempt to go back after Eastern Europe. Now, it's not saying the Heritage Foundation wants that to happen. They just don't give a shit, right? The Heritage Foundation doesn't believe in democracy or freedom, promoting democracy. They don't believe in free trade. They don't believe in global free trade. All they want is to control this hemisphere. That's what they want. So that's why I say, please share this live tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Same live. We'll go over it again. Remember to follow, and I appreciate everybody being here. And I'm going to leave everybody off again. Well, I thought I was going to. With, let's see, the newsroom. So let's do one last on the newsroom.
Hi.
And thanks everybody for
My
joining.
name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say in one sentence or less what? You know what I mean. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Oh, one last call out before we watch this is please remember, I promote the 28th Amendment, right? This is the only way to save America, everybody. It's to get rid of the Heritage Foundation, all the political interests, all the money, all the special interests, all the political radicals or the religious radicals, all the Silicon Valley billionaires, the Heritage Foundation, and everybody else that influences American politics. The reason we don't have a government for the people, by the people, is because we don't have a 28th Amendment and because money allows the entire electoral system to be bought. This is the only solution. It's not about issues, it's about fundamental principles. So thanks everybody for supporting this account and from sharing the videos and reposting and for following and liking. 70,000 likes. That's incredible. And so forth. So everyone have a great night. Let's end with the newsroom again. And I'll see everybody tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern time, the same live about the Heritage Foundation.
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis? Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, the New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
Well, Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom and freedom.
Thanks everybody on Instagram. Appreciate you being here. Please Please spread the word.
I'm not letting you go back to the airport without answering the question.
Well, our Constitution is a masterpiece. James Madison was a genius. The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing. You don't look satisfied.
One's a set of laws and the other's a declaration of war. I want a human moment from you. What about the people? Why is
It's
America
not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying
Yes.
Let's talk about
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of her paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime, column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey, and with a straight face, you're gonna tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yet you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite?
Sure used to be.
Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.